let's start off with just talking a little bit about the pilots and what impact did we see on students? Let's go students first. Any student stories or any things that you could say about the impact on kids?
I'll start. We did story champs, and when we had it's for oral language, improving oral language and written language. And one of the things that Abby and I noticed the first time that she went in and modeled, and then we had the kids write, we had several kids crying because they just could not pull anything to write. It was such a struggle. So several of them were writing. We had one student who wrote 2 words the first time, and I say words loosely. And by the last time we went in, 8 weeks later, the same student who wrote 2 words wrote 17. No crying. It was just fabulous. The kids were excited to write, and just it was made such a huge difference.
Awesome.
I would say that that's the same thing that I experienced as well, Melissa, because we did story champs as well. And just the language that the kids were using from when I went the first time, when you would read them a story, and then the second time when I went, just how much more they were able to retell. And then the language reason, oh, that's their sad feeling, or, that's the character, and just making the connection to that language. You could just see a huge growth and just the excitement. They love the actions, and just it really helped them to remember the elements of the story.
I did the expanding expressions tool, or EET, and it was used to also improve oral and written language. And when I went in the beginning, the students didn't know what to write. I had one student that gave me a list of words that really didn't relate to the topic. And when we went in to do the final writing, he was the last one done. And he had a very well-written, cohesive paragraph. And I just told him, hey, look at where you were at the beginning of this, and look at where you're at now. And he's like, I did good. And I'm like, you did do the beginning. And then we slowly took those away, and to be able to see the kids, sing the song and figure out what they were talking about and put that into writing, it was great to see.
I was working on collaborative strategic reading with a 5th grade classroom. It was really interesting to watch from the first day to, several weeks into the pilot, the students who were maybe hesitant to talk or share their clunks. We struggled a little bit with who was going to do what, and how do we work collaboratively? And as we got going, we assigned roles to each of the groups, or to the members within the group. And after several weeks, we had students who were willing to share, who were talking. There was one particular student who didn't speak the first couple of weeks. And by the end, he was standing up, wanting to share everything, really excited about what his group had been working on. So, of course, with collaborative strategic reading, we're really trying to help them develop that metacognition about what they're reading and thinking about what they're reading. But really, the byproduct of that was so many opportunities to grow with speaking and listening.
For dialogic reading in preschool, it was really interesting to go in and do the first assessment and just have them retell a story that had been told to them, and how many weren't able to do that and answer questions about the story that was just told to them. And so then watching them grow, and watching the teacher grow too, in the way she was practicing the dialogic reading scripts and doing the actions, by the end, just hearing the amount that the students were saying and how much they could tell about the story, because they were used to that practice and they had the language frames, and it was just great to see their data grow by the end.
You want to go next, Abby?
Sure. So knowing that you guys all worked with a lot of different teachers, 5 different teachers, what do you feel like was the biggest impact that you saw on teachers?
I'll start. With collaborative strategic reading, I felt like the intentionality was really what increased and maybe changed the idea that we're reading something to really deepen our understanding of what we can draw from the text versus reading something to get it done just to head to an assignment. So I really felt like that was just the intentionality really changed throughout our process.
And I would agree with that as well, Jen, because that's what I was seeing as well. And the teacher kind of explained to me, she's like, and what's amazing is now that these strategies are naturally transferring over to, you know, when I'm doing small group reading and, you know, we're doing a read aloud. And she's like, I'm naturally just identifying some of these strategies for the kids to make those connections throughout the day. And it's become more natural to her. And she said that it's really supportive of their reading throughout the day.
I think it gave the teacher that I worked with an explicit way to promote oral language acquisition to all of her kids. And it was an explicit way to teach her kids about story elements and then to write about the story. And in kindergarten, she shared with us that she found that very difficult to find something that is as explicit as Story Champs was. And so it made a big impact on the other kindergarten teachers as well, from the results that they saw from the classroom that was using it. So all teachers, the principal has purchased Story Champs for all the kindergarten teachers for next year because they don't want to teach without it.
That's so exciting, Melissa.
For my teacher that I worked with, I think the biggest impact was just having her realize the different opportunities that she could pull this tool into all the different content areas and help students describe things not only orally, but to provide those, you know, written expression opportunities, and just getting the kids writing every day. I think that was just great for her.
For the teacher I worked with dialogic reading, it was great to see her take a practice that she had been doing, which is reading picture books to her students and make it, like Jennifer and Amy have said, so much more intentional with very intentional questions. And then especially having the students repeat back the answers, either as a whole class or as an individual. Just that little tweak made such a difference in their oral vocabulary and what they were able to produce back by the end.
What about you guys, and from the lens of the consultant? What are some successes from the lens of the consultant and some challenges too?
I'll start. In thinking about collaborative strategic reading, when this was first presented to me, I was a little unsure because it's not very structured as far as it's not a boxed program. And so it's a little more open to interpretation or implementation. And so I was a little unsure. And actually, once that we got going, you know, it really flowed really well. You know, we learned with each step that we took along the way. I know I learned a lot. Listening to the teacher who had texted me and said, this has transformed the learning of the students in her classroom, was really kind of a trigger for me that said, well, then we should be doing this in more places. And so since doing the pilot in that one 5th grade classroom, we've now started in another 5th grade classroom in another district. There are 3 classrooms in another district that are also using it, and listening to the teachers talk about and say things like, oh my gosh, I just took for granted that the students would know what that word meant. And I had no idea that they really don't know some of those words that we take for granted that they would know. And another teacher who said to me, I didn't realize how much I was telling the students versus the students coming up with the gist or talking about the reading and what it means to them and what they took from it. So just for me, from the consultant side, I feel like I learned another strategy. Comprehension is something that all teachers say that, well, how do we do that? What do we do? And I feel like I've got this in my back pocket now, and I've been able to spread that to other districts as well. And I think that's been a really positive thing from this pilot.
I can go next. So I would say the biggest benefits for me personally were getting to know the teachers, getting to work with teachers that I might not have normally worked with, and just getting to be in the classroom more with providing some of the modeling and observations of the teacher and just the kids in the classroom. And I really didn't really have any challenges aside from the fact that it was new. I'd never heard of Story Champs before. So just learning that, I guess, maybe was not really a challenge. It was exciting to get to learn something new. But I think, yeah, the only challenge that we had is getting all the kids at the same time to school to do the final testing. That was maybe a challenge, but otherwise it was great.
I would agree with that. Story Champs, I think that would be my challenge, is just because it was new for me. And so just kind of teaching myself how to use that and kind of absorb that training so that I could support the teacher. But I think one of the coolest parts about it is that we were bringing so many different people in, from speech to the gen ed teacher, and then using that literacy and kind of collaborating together to really provide the best support for the teacher, and just helping us all understand this new program and why it's so important. Not just for kids that are in speech and need speech support for that oral language, but also for all kids. So I think that was probably the coolest part, is getting to collaborate with someone. I think we know we need to work more with our speech paths. So I think that pushing that to happen really was a great thing.
I will echo Amy too, that getting to work and collaborate with the speech pathologists and learning all that they know about, not all that they know, but learning a lot that they know about oral language was really valuable, and simple things that I could have been implementing in my classroom a long time ago that I didn't know that I should do, and I didn't know that would have a big impact. It was great to learn those things and then pass those on to teachers. And I'm excited to get to share this strategy with more teachers in the building we worked with and in other districts.
I think the biggest impact that I had on myself was I was able to develop a better relationship with this teacher. In our coaching conversations and working with her, it kind of opened up a door to discuss some other literacy related conversations. And I could help her. I was able to help her with some small group reading and how to incorporate this into the whole group. And so it was just great conversations that we had that I hope really helped her. It helped me as well. And I also was excited just to be able to get back in the classroom and work directly with the students. And, it's been a while since I've walked into the classroom and the kids were excited and were like, yay, Mrs. Evans is here. And so I was really excited to see that.
It feels good when you leave, or when you go there and they're excited, and then you leave and you're like, oh, that was good for the soul.
I think we do, as AEA consultants, we can get removed from the classroom. We're out doing our job and we can get like a step or two away from students. And I think that is so important when we do pilots like this. I think that's huge, that we actually that we're back into working with students. It kind of grounds us into why we do what we do.
So I don't know if this is something that Jen will need to edit out, but just, we had a conversation in a team meeting last week that, the SLPs, the speech language pathologists, are going to, maybe need some help with when they have to explain, like they're coming in as more of a consultative basis. And as our regional was talking about that, the first thing that came to my mind is I feel like I have a better understanding that I could help support that teacher with some of these pilots, and then talking to the other lit consultants and maybe getting some information on their pilots. Like, I feel that as a literacy consultant, when that transition does happen, when an SLP does need to go on a consultative basis with a student or students in a classroom, that, we could still help support the teacher and the student with some of these strategies that she can use in the classroom. So I was kind of excited about that.
I think that's really important too, Melissa, because speech language pathologists, we at this point haven't had that great entry point to tier 1. We've got tier 2 and tier 3 covered. And so knowing that those partnerships exist and that now we all have some shared knowledge and you guys can really help to support in that tier 1, and then start to recognize like there's concerns here that are going beyond just that general sort of support that we need, and we need some supplemental support in there. So I think that that's a really exciting partnership, and that I'm glad that you're feeling that way and excited about that partnership moving forward, because I think that we want to support oral language at tier 1, and it can't just be the students that we're serving on our caseload, like somebody else had said. So that's really exciting. So thinking about moving forward, Jackie and I have no answers about what this will look like next year, or, who's involved or what sites or anything like that, or even if it exists. But if you were to think about knowing your strategy and the way it was implemented this year, what are some things that you guys think about the future? Either changes or something additional you would want to do, or, is it continuing the same way it has been this year? So just kind of thinking that magic wand, if we could wave it, what would that look like for you guys next year?
I think now that we've got some teacher testimonial, that's high leverage. I feel like using the data and using that testimony from the teachers and their successes with it is really like the most powerful way to support this. Because teachers want to hear from other teachers. And if a teacher's saying, I used it, it was awesome, that's going to be a selling point. And I feel like that would be something that I would probably use if I feel like there are other teachers that would benefit from something like story champs, which I think all would in that age range. So I feel like that's huge. The data and, just the numbers of growth, that growth that these kids have made, and then the teachers' responses to these programs and strategies.
To Melissa's point earlier, thinking about how we can continue to build our own toolboxes so that we can then support our schools that we serve. So I guess if I could wave my magic wand, I'd love to know, how can we systematically learn about all of these strategies so that we can expand our toolbox and expand our reach in classrooms?
Well, I want to do more pilots next year. That's what I want to do. So there's if I had a choice and could wave a magic wand, I would love to do this again, because of the learning and because of getting to actually get into classrooms and work with teachers and kids is just, it's just good for us to be connected that way.
I think it shifted all of our thinking, because we all went in unfamiliar, the teacher, us, and we were all kind of hesitant, and just, it's kind of cool to see how everybody shifted their thinking to now we're like, let's do it again. And the teacher's excited. And so kind of breaking that barrier of this is something new and different. And I have so much on my plate, and just to see the power of, why we do these things. So.
And maybe with the success that we've seen with this, that might help us to maybe prioritize our plates, right? And maybe there are things on our plates that are taking a lot of time that maybe we can let ourselves go with. And so maybe we can think about that too. We want to think about what has the most impact on students.
And I just love the idea that we're really targeting tier 1. You know, I think so much our first entry point has been in intervention, and it's a way to get our foot in the door. And we've done a lot of that work, but to really get in and work at tier 1 is hugely impactful. And I hope that we see that through the data and the results.
I've also
think-
learned, go ahead, sorry. Abby.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I've learned so much from collaborating with this speech pilot. It also makes me curious about what other resources we have and what other people in our agency we could be talking to and collaborating with to bring some of their knowledge to tier 1.
I think in moving forward, I'm excited to continue to try to do this work more in, maybe this school because the principal was really excited about it, but just sharing it with others and, getting our kids talking more and writing more. I think it's just exciting work that we've done, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go.
And I think that the data really speaks for itself. I mean, we had in the sites that I was involved in, I mean, kids made phenomenal growth in such a short amount of time. And that's really kudos to you guys and all the coaching and support that you guys gave to the gen ed teachers. And I just want to say how much I've loved getting to work with this group this year. And I hope for my own sake that we get to continue to partner and into next year, because I want to continue to work closely with all of you and continue that relationship and grow that, and hopefully get Kara involved too.
For sure. And thank you, Abby and Jackie, for kind of being there as a crutch and a support for us too.